Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to Test Tube Plus today. I'm Trace, welcome back. This is episode 1 of 5 about a brand new topic this series, immigration. This can be a pretty contentious topic. There's a lot of people talking about it. It's a political year, so there's a lot going on. But we're going to try and get to the bottom of what immigration really means for the world. You know, where did citizenship even come from? What good are immigrants when it comes to a nation's economy? And can there be negatives to immigration? And what are those? Also, how has globalization changed what immigration really means in our modern world? But first, let's spend a little time talking about what citizenship even is. Where did this concept even come from? So in the US today, and I apologize for our international fans, we're gonna stick mostly in the US because that's what we here at Test Tube Plus, myself and our researchers, understand a little better. It's a little more of a concept that we can grasp. But in the US today, citizens have inalienable rights guaranteed by the Constitution. You know, freedom of speech, freedom of expression to an extent, you know, right to vote in free and fair elections, the right to privacy, sort of. It's not really explicitly granted in the Constitution, but there are parts of the Bill of Rights that guarantee and explicitly protect aspects of privacy, or what one could call privacy. We also have the right to equal treatment under the law and, you know, the right to a fair and speedy trial. But according to the Citizenship and Responsibilities section of the United States Citizenship and Immigration Service, citizens of the U.S. aren't just given rights based on being citizens. They also have responsibilities. Did you know that? We have things that we also have to do because we agreed to be citizens. You know, we joined the country club that is America, and therefore we have to put our towels in the bin instead of just throwing them around everywhere. And those rules include supporting and defending the Constitution, serving the country when required, and participating in the democratic process, and, you know, a number of other things. The concept of citizenship is not new. This isn't something that the United States invented. This goes back thousands of years to ancient Greece and Rome. One of the first civilizations in Europe began on the island of Crete in the Aegean Sea. It was the Minoan civilization in 2600 BCE, and Greek culture took a lot of its cues from the Minoans. Obviously, during this period, as through all periods of human history, wars were a big part of the Greek culture. Eventually, however, things started to get into a peacetime, and city-states began to develop around 800 BCE, and these city-states were places that people could live and kind of create their own mini governments, as opposed to today we have these quite large countries. Something like Rome would have been a city-state. Something like Athens would have been a city-state, something that self-governed rather than letting the country as a whole govern them. Mountains and seas separate a lot of these city-states, and that gave them these senses of independence, and they included a central city usually surrounded by villages. Each section was called a polis. People in both the city and the countryside were all part of a polis, and people in a polis thought of themselves as part of a political community. All citizens of the polis had legal and political rights in there, which becomes the concept of citizenship. These citizens were part of a political community. Thanks, Greece. Thanks for figuring this out for us. But monarchies, of course, still persisted throughout history, and the debate between citizen versus subject became kind of serious, became kind of a thing. Aristotle said that a central element of citizenship included the participation in the business of ruling. Citizens were involved in helping to run the country in some respect. Subjects, however, under a monarchy don't rule the country. They are subject to the rule of the monarch. Citizens share responsibilities to rule, and that's impossible in a monarchy. You can't be subjugated and also rule. It doesn't work. Academic philosopher, political scientist, journalist, and historian Thomas Hobbes, he argued whether a commonwealth be monarchical or popular, the freedom is still the same. So what Hobbes is saying is that it doesn't really matter who makes the law. The law of the land is still the law. You know, it is cynical to think that way, like to say, who cares who makes the laws, whether it's a citizen or a monarch, but there's still laws. Setting that aside for a minute, though, we're not talking about the rule of law. We're not talking about kind of who runs the country. We're talking about the citizens themselves and who decides who becomes a citizen. It makes sense in a polis because everyone who lives there, you are a citizen of that polis. You're part of the community. You probably have some land, or you have some business, or you have some purpose of being there, and thus you are a citizen. But at what point does someone become what we call in the U.S. a natural-born citizen? Natural-born citizenship has been discussed widely, especially in the United States, and in light of recent political posturing and discussion of immigration on television and in newspapers, both illegal immigration or undocumented immigrants, as well as legal immigration and paths to citizenship, all of these things are being discussed now, and they all kind of come back to what is a citizen and what is a natural-born citizen. Article 2 of the United States Constitution states, "No person, except a natural-born citizen, or a citizen of the United States at the time of the adoption of this Constitution shall be eligible to the office of President." It's a pretty big deal. That's basically saying there are two classes of people inside of the United States. People who are citizens and can run for president because they are natural-born citizens, and people who become citizens later, which means not all citizens are equal. Let me go on, though. "Neither shall any person be eligible to that office who shall have not attained the age of 35 years and been 14 years a resident within the United States." That kind of changes things a little bit. You can be a natural-born citizen and not have lived in the United States and can't run for president. So we're really looking for people who live here and were also a natural-born citizen of the U.S. The controversy begins because this prevents 12.8 million Americans from being eligible for presidency. Other significant Americans who are not eligible for presidency currently are former secretaries of state like Madeleine Albright or Henry Kissinger. There were also former Labor Secretary Elaine Chao and over 700 different Congressional Medal of Honor winners. These are people who we've elected and appointed to our highest offices, people who we've given the highest awards that the United States of America can give, and they cannot be president. The governor of my home state was Canadian when I was living there, Jennifer Granholm, and she attained the office of governor, but that was pretty much the highest she could get, except for maybe a political appointment in the White House. Is that fair? Who knows? Arnold Schwarzenegger was governor of California. Should he be able to run for president? He was governor of tens of millions of people. It's a lot of power. This is a debate that people are having. The Supreme Court has never ruled on why and how the natural-born citizen stuff works, and it wasn't obviously strictly defined. But according to the Congressional Research Service, a person who is born outside of the United States can qualify as a natural-born citizen as long as one of their parents is a U.S. citizen, or if you're born in a U.S. territory. These are called two things. I'm going to mispronounce this, but it's jus sanguinis, or the law of descent, and there's also jus soli. That's the being born in a U.S. territory law. And it's not really a law, it's British common law. We still use it today because that was the common law during the adoption of the U.S. Constitution. When the U.S. Constitution was being created, these were the things that we were using in political spheres. Now, today, they just kind of get carried forward. So if you're automatically granted U.S. citizenship at birth, then no worries. You are a U.S. citizen. But there are also all these other people that kind of float around in the immigration debate when it comes to whether you can become a citizen, what is your current political status. So whether or not someone is a natural-born citizen, there are a lot of other terms that are thrown around in this debate. We've got migrants, we've got refugees, on top of immigrants and a variety of different types of immigrants. So why don't we learn a little bit more about that tomorrow on Test Tube Plus. You can come back here. Make sure you subscribe. You can click right here on the screen to do that. You can also click the button down below. Make sure you share this video with your friends if you have ideas on citizenship and want to talk about it. You can talk about it down in the comments as well. Maybe you're a citizen of another country. Why don't you tell us how that happened if you maybe weren't, or how you got to be a citizen, because not every country, you just have to be born there. Also, keep coming back here most days for Test Tube Plus, and we will see you tomorrow.